big sponsor. That look like for the district to be on the back of the jersey or the T-shirts, or how can we create this mutually beneficial work for us?
I can help you out with that, because due to since me and my man Dave, to cut costs, what we did is we purchased a little machine to kind of help make our own uniforms. So to cut costs, instead of buying uniforms just like that, we bought that machine, and then we just purchased items to make our own uniforms, this and that. So if you need something like that, we can accommodate that to put whatever you want on the back of the jersey, or just help out.
Talk to Dante, because he has a machine.
I have a question. So are you saying that using Turner Field actually helps recruit more students? That's what you're saying, right? Because it's more visible?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so you lost students because of where you were.
And you'd be surprised, like, not even just that, just like some of the people who maybe they played and maybe have kids now will ride past and just see an empty field, like, what's going on? I've been stopped, and that's what's crazy, that I've been coaching so long that now some of the kids that I did coach have kids.
Right.
And they asked me, am I still coaching? And I'm like, yeah, I'm just, not doing football anymore, but I'm just doing baseball. So, they're like, well, I don't see y'all in Turner no more. Like, well, we haven't been to Turner for, quite some time. So, and one other question I just need to ask, because I know I've been through this before. I know once the school closes and stuff like that, who does the upkeep of the field?
I was just going to ask you that question.
Well, prior, we did all anything that needed, we took care of while we were at the field. So, it was like, and instead of it just waiting around and looking, messed up, let's take care of it, because we have to use it and we want to keep using it. So,
do you mean you actually cut the grass?
Yes.
Or like whatever, grass
Yes.
and the dirt?
If we didn't cut it, we had to call somebody in to get it cut.
Is that, that's what I was wondering too. We've had some issues with the field in recent, since I've been on the board,
Right.
with football. Teams, like I know, when I went down there, I find all kinds of stuff, jerseys, trash, all kinds of stuff.
Right.
And that's been an ongoing issue that we haven't been able to resolve.
Get it cleaned
To
up.
my satisfaction, at least,
Now, I'm not going to, because I did do football also too. Sometimes a lot of stuff is blamed on the organizations when it really don't be. Because there's times that people will just drive past, like when, I'll be honest, when the concession stand was there, people would just come past and drop their own garbage in the thing, or just throw it to the side and just like that. Now it looks like this and that. But when we were there, what I used to do is, try to get kids into it too. Like, well, look, this is part of your neighborhood too, So, or sometimes I would just entice them, look, clean up and get some free food. You'd be surprised how many kids would just come up.
Yeah, for us, the thing is, like, whatever little bit of rent, sometimes I think we charge them, that doesn't come close to what it costs us, you know what I mean, for insurance and all that stuff. But at least treat the property with respect, because it's a public lot, that's all.
Right.
So when we see trash, when I would get a phone call, usually from you, and I would drive down there and see, like, after the football people, and I was like, oh, come on, we talked about this, So this is what you mean, I think, when you talk about, how can this be a win-win?
Right.
What we don't want is to have an eyesore, a headache on us because we did something good,
Exactly. Right.
So, any other questions for Mr. McCullough? Yes.
Mr. McCullough, it's unfortunate that you lost your materials, the sheds you were talking about. Do you know an estimated cost, or did you have insurance on any of that?
No, we really didn't have any insurance on it. It was a metal box. We thought we had it locked up pretty well, this and that. On top of that, the fence was locked, so there was no easy access to get into it. So cost made. I was trying to look up some of, because it was an old box. I'm not going to say it was new or something like that, but just the sheer size of it and what it could hold. I don't know. I will have to look that up, and when I give him the list of that, I'll throw that in with that also.
And do you have any other, I might have missed that, organizations that also contribute? I know you said you got your own machine, for your
Oh, you
uniforms,
mean-
but like for your balls and bats and all that?
Well, being part of the RBI program, they used to assist this and that, but they are going through some reconstruction themselves. When I'm understanding the last meeting I went to, it's that, because excuse my name, and I should remember this guy's name. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry, played for the Pirates. Roberto Clemente, I'm sorry. Clemente Foundation, there we go. Has taken over most of it. They used to just be a part of it, but now it seems like the Roberto Clemente Foundation and the Pirates are taking over everything. So the RBI program is not ran like it used to be because they used to, they have a facility down Shady Side Boys and Girls Club where there's a batting thing that we used to use every now and then. And then they would give out balls and equipment like that we were missing some stuff like that to help us out. But since they have taken over, and I've asked questions about that too, no one really has gotten back to me about an answer about that. But usually what we do is just reach out this and that. There's been a couple of high schools I reached out to just to see if they know old stuff, this and that. But that's about it.
Well, maybe we could go together and write a letter to these people and ask them for money. I mean, ask the Pirates and the Clemente Foundation, we go together on something, we ask them to give us a couple $1,000 to help out with this stuff. And there's a lot of stuff we can do together, so.
Right, I agree with that. And on top of that, like Mr. Reese, he did a lot of the background stuff, back room, all the paperwork and finding out stuff like that. He used to have something with Dick's also too. But with me trying to pick it up a little bit, to be honest with you, not as good as he was. I was more the field guy, going to all that type of stuff. He would handle that. So we worked, in cahoots with that. But now I'm starting to see how really hard it is to do this.
It's a lot.
So
How about thank you for coming in and for making it as brief as you did, you know what I mean? 'Cause we got so much work to do tonight, but you get me that info. I'll text you my email address if you don't already have it. I got your number. And you'll get me that by next week so that I can share it with the rest of the board and we'll get back to you with what we can do.
okay,
All right.
sure will.
Okay.
Hey, as an alum of Wilkinsburg baseball, I want to thank you as well, going back to 1990. Stop it.
As school board member Michael Rose said he played in 1990.
Oh,
Right, going back, yeah, a couple years.
Okay.
Thank you for all that you do. I know how tiring it can be.
Oh man, if it, it's the adults. The adults that think it.
Michael's just a big kid, so,
Yeah.
Okay, I want to thank y'all again for
Thank you for coming in.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay. Hey, before we go any farther into the agenda, so we did have a pretty exhaustive presentation, a presentation about the work at Kelly and all the construction that we want to do and how much money that's going to cost us. Something that we maybe we have to talk about as a board is a different way to finance this. And we've never talked about borrowing the money, doing a bond issue to be able to get the money to do Kelly or part of that money. That is an option to us. We have an excellent credit rating right now. That's how we paid for Turner. So I just want to, nobody's thrown that out there yet, but I want to throw it out now because the amount of money we're looking at keeps going up. And even no matter how much we cut away at it, it's still going to be a lot of money. So I just want board members to remember that is an option open to us. And I know Rick wouldn't let us go into debt if we couldn't afford to do it. So, all right, I think that's it, right? So we can move on with the agenda now. So we have the PPS Envoy project.
Yeah, so we have Rashayla and Annie, right, with PPS. All right, they did a presentation for summertime about their student envoy project that they've initiated at Pittsburgh Public Schools. And I think it's another way for us to be able to, connect, men come together because they've already have it in elementary schools. But they can explain it a lot better than me. They are on right now, Rashayla and Annie.
Hello, everyone. How's it going? Am I able to share my screen? Is that okay?
Sure.
All right.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you for having me join you all.
Thank you for being here.
Give me a couple seconds to get us going here. All right, so as Dr. Malushnik has said, I'm Rashayla Broughton. I am the project manager for the Wilkinsburg School District and PPS partnership. And I have with me Annie Stilo. She is the PPS project manager of Student Envoy. And we're here to talk about possibly introducing Student Envoy to Turner Intermediate. So while thinking about the transition from our Wilkinsburg resident students to PPS, one thing that I thought of that could help with bridging the culture between Wilkinsburg and PPS students was the Student Envoy Project. I do believe that Student Envoy is a great leadership program that could allow Turner students to engage with other students across the PPS district, develop leadership skills, and equip them to use those leadership skills to be change agents at their schools. I was excited to learn that WookRes students engaged and participated in Student Envoy at the high school level. Since the partnership's inception, these students have actively participated and taken advantage of the leadership development opportunity. They've been learning SEL skills and using leadership skills to change the culture at Westinghouse. And like I said, I was really excited to learn that, our Wilkinsburg residency students were already engaging in the Student Envoy project, but I think this will be a really cool opportunity to get the students involved sooner. But before I go too far into that, I just wanted to take a moment to explain what Student Envoy is. So Annie, if you want to provide the overview of Student Envoy, that'll be great.
Sorry. You see anything?
I do see it.
Shayla, I don't think she's on anymore.
Annie's not on anymore?
No, she was, but I think she signed off or accidentally.
Okay, I can go over some of the highlights. I really wanted you to hear from her since it's her project. Let me.
She is. She's there now.
I am
Okay.
so sorry. Google Meet is causing me some issues, and my device died right as I think you were about to introduce me, Rashayla. So I apologize, everybody.
No worries. If you can just give us the overview.
Absolutely. Yes. So as I'm sure Rashayla said, my name's Annie Silo. I am the project manager for teaching and learning at Pittsburgh Public Schools and have been managing our district's largest student leadership program for the past 7 years called the Student Envoy Project. So the Student Envoy Project, as you see on Rashayla's screen, is a student leadership program that's focused on efficacy. And I want to pause right there really quickly because I know that efficacy is one of those educational buzzwords we use a lot. So just want to make sure we're all on the same page there. When we say efficacy, what we're talking about is the capacity to mobilize our efforts. So, kind of when you think about working smarter, not necessarily working harder. And so this program that's focused on mobilizing that effort is put in place to really empower students to serve as active partners in their school culture, both on the academic and the behavioral side. So really giving students that voice, that space that they can become true change makers in their school. And so at Pittsburgh Public Schools, we have the Student Envoy Project in 24 of our schools. And in those 24 schools, we have approximately 500 students that participate in grades K through 12. And every year for the past almost 6 years, approximately 30 to 45 on any given year, students at Westinghouse participate. And we have been very fortunate throughout the years that many of your students who have matriculated from Turner and Kelly back in the day too have been really integral parts of the program at Westinghouse. And so once our students participate in the program, there's really some key social emotional learning skills that they are taught as part of this program and that are then reinforced throughout their time that they are serving as student leaders in their building. And these SEL skills, I think what you all will see are probably really closely going to partner with some of the work that you're already doing in the space of PBIS, in the space of teaching social emotional learning to students. This program just helps to put that into even more student-friendly language and to provide you with explicit resources, both as adults and students, to actually share these skills. So some of the big skills that are covered, and I'll put these in adult speak, you don't need necessarily the student versions yet, but don't worry, those will be learned eventually. The key SEL skills are strength of character, growth mindset, perseverance, data-driven decision-making, and a learning orientation. So that's kind of just our brief overview of what the Student Envoy Project is. Again, student leadership program that's really empowering students to be at the table, helping to make changes in their building. And so again, the reason that we're here today as our district and Dr. Joe and his team continue to think about ways to work together, to collaborate, to strengthen the connection as students come from Wilkinsburg over to Westinghouse. We thought that this could make that transition even better, but could also really strengthen the great work that's currently going on at Turner. So Rashayla, do you want to go on to the next slide that'll just share a little bit about what would need to be in place for this to get started at Wilkinsburg? And then we can definitely answer any questions that the team might have.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Annie. And again, I believe that this is an excellent opportunity to build that community through a shared experience. Again, I know we have a lot of conversations as far as transition activities and how we can make sure that the students coming from Turner can really feel as though they belong within the district. And I think having those shared experiences together at an earlier state would really help to enhance that, just that sense of belonging. Like Annie expressed, we do have Student Envoy across the district, so they wouldn't only engage with students at Westinghouse, but other students across or other schools within a district as well. But yeah, so let's discuss what this looks like moving forward. I'll briefly go over the training, and Annie, if you can explain just the structure a little bit more.
Absolutely.
So within a training, there is required training necessary to move forward. First, there is a 2-day training for all staff. The associated fee for this training is $5,000 per day, totaling $10,000 plus the travel fee of the facilitator. And the facilitator will be coming from Boston. And then additionally, once you identify who your Student Envoy facilitators will be, which could be just 2 staff, it could be 2 teachers, 2 paraprofessionals, just 2 adults who you feel as though will be most appropriate to spearhead Student Envoy within your school. They will be required to do an additional 2-day training. I know we expressed to Dr. Joe previously that fee would be an additional $10,000. However, we were able to negotiate with the Efficacy Opportunity Training, Efficacy Institute, and we're allowed to utilize a PPS staff to facilitate that training. Therefore, it'll be free of charge to you. So we were really excited that we can remove $10,000 off of the grand total. Also, there would be, of course, school level fees for things such as like materials, camp, and any workshop rates for your teachers and things like that. So those are some of the training and fees associated with that you may want to keep in mind. But Annie, even before you go into the structure, would you like to just give a little bit more detail about what consists of the training, or what those training days will look like between all staff as well as the teacher leaders?
Absolutely. So that full staff training, that is really going to be digging into efficacy for adults. And when I say digging into it for adults, we do really want adults to have the opportunity to look at themselves and look at their experience with intelligence, how they feel about their own growth mindset, their beliefs in themselves. It's an opportunity for them to reflect and to, kind of think in some of these areas that might have been harmed a bit as a result of the pandemic. So we definitely have time for staff to think about their own selves and to build that within. But then we also provide plenty of opportunity for staff to think about how they explicitly teach these concepts to their students. And there are plenty of materials and resources that are provided by the Efficacy Institute, but also by Pittsburgh Public Schools that we've created over the years. And so it's an engaging opportunity for staff to talk to each other, to have, colorful conversations, and to start thinking about how they might utilize this new learning to best support their students. On that teacher leader side, that is really implementation of the Student Envoy project. So that'd be working with Rashayla and I to dig a little bit deeper into how do we really support the student leaders that are chosen as student envoys to have a really meaningful impact in their building. Again, we're in 24 schools. We've been supporting many teacher leaders across the years. And so there's so much that we've learned and would be happy to share to make sure that implementation could begin and continue in a really strong way at Wilkinsburg. Is there anything else you wanted me to add to that, Rashayla?
No, that is great. If you could just explain the structure a little bit more.
Sure. So we did go over this structure with Dr. Joe and some members of his team. And it seemed like these were some areas that the team felt pretty confident in, but we wanted to be able to share those with the board as well. So what we asked to ensure, again, that strong implementation for schools is that we asked that there are 2 teacher leaders, we call them teacher envoys, that are trained for every 20 students. So if you would have more than that, we would ask for there to be additional teachers that would support the work. We additionally ask for a commitment of 5 to 10 students from at least 2 grades. We don't want to focus all of our efforts on 5th grade. They are on 6th grade, they matriculate, and then we're always trying to find new students. So we make sure that we pull across a few grades, and we can definitely work with Wilkinsburg to decide exactly what that makeup looks like. Is it 5th and 6th grade students? Do you want to pull down to some 4th graders? We can really work to determine numbers that work best across those grades as well. We also ask that these students, once they participate in our district-wide training, which is in this next bullet point, we have a student envoy camp. We would invite the Wilkinsburg students to participate with elementary school students from all across our district. After they have that experience of camp, we then ask that teacher envoys and student envoys meet together each week for approximately 30 minutes. In our district, that might look like a working lunch. It might look like meeting during intervention one day. Homeroom, whenever we can make that work, that's least disruptive for the school. But we want to make sure that the kids have dedicated time to work on their projects so that we can actually see some fruit of their labors. And then Rashayla already touched on that school level budget. Again, these are some pieces that, again, we can provide some ideas on, how our different schools have tried to minimize costs. I will say for most schools, there are very few associated costs when it comes to their implementation once they've done the initial training. Sometimes it might be that the kids have a really great idea for a project, but there's always opportunities to fundraise and to get the community involved if there's something they want to do that really needs money. But most of the time, our student envoy groups operate without needing to ask for any, or, if anything, little money from their school.
Thank you so much, Andy. And then on our final slide, we actually have just a few pics of a recent Westinghouse Student Envoy event. Student leaders put together a student rec day for the entire school, and the event rewarded students for their PBIS points and academic success while promoting those essential SEL skills in their school. So while you view the pics at this time, we are open to any questions if you have any.
Actually, let's see, with my mic off, I'm still being heard, right? Okay, so actually, hi, this is Ed. I do have a couple questions. First, do you have feedback from past participants about, or even current ones, about what benefit do participants say they derive from the time and energy they spend in the program?
Yeah, so we do have some feedback even from our recent mid-year event. So I will say that one of the biggest things we hear from our students is they love feeling like they're a part of something that's bigger than just them, bigger than just their school. The fact that we're able to connect them with students from across the city, and they regularly have opportunities to collaborate, that is a big motivator for many of our students. But of course, our students on their school level feel like they have many benefits because, you know, they have an organized way to have their voices heard, and not just their voices that they're representing the voices of their peers as well. So they're regularly doing things like surveys, suggestion box, different ways that they can make sure that they're representing the voice of their peers. And so there's really something to be said whenever kids feel like not only do they have an opportunity to share their voice, but they actually get to act on it. And they are the ones that are putting together these activities, initiatives, service projects for their schools. So I would say that when we talk about participants, those are the two main things that we hear from our participants. But of course, you know, different feedback from other groups in terms of teachers, administrators, and all of those that have plenty of pieces of positive feedback to share as participation in the program as well.
Okay, well, I just follow up on, so there are about 500 kids who participate from about 24 schools. So the kids from Wilkinsburg, the students from Wilkinsburg would then interact, there would be cross-pollination or whatever with students across all 24 of those schools?
It would be with the students from the elementary schools. So we typically have our elementary schools at events together, and then our middle and high school students at events together. Our elementary students make up about 300 of our students that participate. And I want to say at this point, it's about 8 to 17 elementary schools. So they would mostly be working with those students. Though we did talk to Dr. Joe about the fact that both Faison and Lincoln are two of the biggest PPS schools that filter into Westinghouse. And so we would also love to really focus in there and try to provide additional opportunities for those students to really get to know each other, maybe even work together on a project that would benefit their shared communities.
Okay, because a goal of mine for years now, since the partnership started, has been to help our students and their families see that the partnership with Pittsburgh is way more than just Wilkinsburg and Westinghouse. You know what I mean? It's the whole system. There are all those other schools. So if our kids are interacting with kids from, like you mentioned, Faison, a couple other schools, to me, that's a big deal. Because they need to see that they're part of something way larger, even if it's just applying to a magnet school or a special program or a CTE, whatever, to see they're part of something big. So that was your answer to that.
Absolutely.
Rashayla, I know you do too, but that's fine. Thanks. All right, that's all my questions.
Of course.
I don't know, can I undo my mic now?
No, you don't need to.
Oh, it can't.
It'll hear you.
Perfect.
Yep, we can hear you.
Thank you for the presentation. My question was specifically when we talked about elementary school, our students participating with elementary schools and understanding that PPS starts middle school at 6th grade. So what does that look like for our 6th graders if they're a part of this to be incorporated with the middle schoolers instead of having them with your 4th and 5th graders? Because that could then be one of those feelings where they're like, well, why am I here with these kids? Even though they're all kids, you know, where 6th grader minds are. So I'm thinking like, how do we make sure our 6th graders can still connect with the middle schoolers? Because technically everyone doesn't do intermediate. So what was that?
Well, most of, and Annie, feel free to add to this, but even within a district, like considering some of our schools that are academy that has like even a middle school and a high school, we still try to pair up the teacher with that grade so that they can attend the appropriate grade level camp so that they can get that grade level experience for them. But by all means, Annie, feel free to add more context.
Yep. So one of my favorite parts, I always say that if we're going to preach efficacy, we should do it ourselves. And so, you know, this is very much a program that doesn't fit within a box. That, you know, when schools come to us and they say, all right, this is what we think would be best for us and our students, we work with them to make it happen. And so if that was something where you all said, you know, we would like our 4th and 5th grade, just making up if those were the other grades, you know, we would like them to go to the elementary camp, but we would really like our middle schoolers to go to the middle school camp. Or maybe we want everybody to go to camp together, but when we have our mid-year event where every school is sharing out on the projects they've done this year, if you say, hey, let's let our 6th graders go to that middle school event, we would absolutely be willing to work with you to do that. I should say too, that in our elementary schools that are represented, close to half of them are K-8s. And so they on their campuses do have students in grades K through 8. And so it would also be really easy to partner up with some of those K-8s to make sure that your 6th grade students were feeling that connection. Now, again, because we have K-8s, some of our elementary groups actually are 5th and 6th grade. So there are other 6th graders that typically are attending, but of course less than there would be like 5th graders. So we would be happy to work with the staff at Turner to decide what would make the most sense and what would be best for your students to ensure that they got the richest experience that they could.
Cool beans.
Thanks for that question.
Anything else, anyone? All right, so next steps for us would be to decide what we want to do this, right?
Yeah, we were looking to get approval in May. The May board meeting, we're going to get you this month ahead of time to look this over. And then I did send you some documents in your email, so just see if you got it.
All right, so I just found out that we have a couple weeks to be able to look over some things and read and learn up about this, and we'll be voting on it in May. So that's great. Thank you both for being here with us.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you for having me. And it's
If
good
you
to
have
see
any
you,
follow-up
Ashley.
questions, if you have any follow-up questions, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's see. So that's moving right along. We'll move into the reports. Item A is the solicitor's report. Mr. Hubbin, we got your riveting report for this month. Do you have anything to add to that?
I have nothing to add, but just a reminder that we do have a hearing scheduled for Wednesday, May 4 at 6:30. That's a hearing in front of the board itself. So please have it on your calendar.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Wednesday, May 3rd, next 4th. That's what I meant. May 4th. Okay. Thank you. All right. Yeah, I'll tell you. I'll fill you in actually. Yeah, all the good stuff. All right. I am delighted to turn the rest of this over right now to Dr. Joe.
Just a couple of things, as you know, and I met with the board and executive session, just thinking about personnel and positions and so on. We will be recommending some things tonight, but also come next month, so we're ready for July 1. So already thinking about that process. Luckily, this past month, I did get to meet with the paraprofessionals. I came on in this position, I wanted to make sure I met with everybody. And the last group I got to meet with was the paraprofessionals about 3 or 4 weeks ago. Really good meeting, and a lot of them are familiar faces because they've been here a while. So one thing I want everybody to realize is we have a very committed paraprofessional staff right now. And what I like when I go into some of the rooms, sometimes you don't know who the teacher is. And that's what we want to see. So that's a good feeling. And as we think about next year and getting more adults in the classroom, if we can get paraprofessionals like we have now, we're going to be in good shape. I mean, they're very dedicated, passionate about what they do. Some of them are going to get their teaching degrees right now, and some of them already are getting their classroom monitor certificate to be allowed to be in a classroom without a certified teacher in that classroom. They can't grade or plan, but they can actually oversee a classroom. So they're very energetic, very enthusiastic. So I feel we all feel very confident with our group there. It was nice to last week, just to give everybody just a heads up. We did do a site visit. Dr. Bosick, Mr. Steadley, and I did a site visit to Sunrise. I think they enjoyed it.
Yeah,
I think it was a good experience.
Great experience.
Yeah, and seeing what that school district has been providing some of our kids for us. And I know Mr. Steadley's been on it, and he's been pretty passionate about it. So you'll get some more information on that. Just because we have some issues that we're still talking about a year later. So, and I appreciate the principal. I think Esposito, always figure out how to say her last name. She did a great job, and she's very passionate too about what they do there every single day. And I couldn't do what they do.
Yeah,
I didn't know.
incredible facility.
Yeah. Today I did meet with superintendents of Allegheny County. I'm going to give more information on this. And I did just attach it about an FBI community outreach program that's being started in Allegheny County, and some great programs. So if you get a chance, some things like a Citizens Academy, youth team, college academics, community awareness, and things like that. But this is in your email that I sent to you, so you can take a look at it. It was pretty impressive that we saw that, and they're trying to reach out and just and it's not just the students, it's the communities. They're trying to incorporate as much as possible. One other thing I did get to meet with, I don't know if you guys did get to see it, I left it off and I just remembered, is the New Pittsburgh Program. The reason I want to talk about this is because I do talk regularly with Stephen Sarita at Westinghouse, and we try to communicate as much as possible, just making sure our kids are getting notified of things. And the Pittsburgh promised to create Advancing Educators of Color scholarships. So they're expanding the Pittsburgh Promise program. Celine Gabriel, I guess he was the one who initiated the Pittsburgh Promise, and I met with his staff. So they're expanding it because, as you know, and you've heard from me many a times, and I can send you any documentation, which I probably will, on this major educator shortage that we are going to see in the next few years. So already there's a shortage of teachers, minority teachers, but now it's even worse across the board. So this program is getting some of our high school students early on, getting them committed to go into this field of education and paying for their education. So, and I'll be sharing that with our high school students too. So I think they need to know that. For this month, I did ask Carrie not to give a formal presentation. We'll do Student of the Month next week because at some point in here we do have a math presentation, because we're ready to, I sat with to review their presentation to decide on a math program begin next school year. So we need to get approval on that so we can move forward. But unfortunately, we only have one coach here tonight, one bowed out on it. So at some point, I'm not sure where that's headed next. So but that's all I have for this evening.
All right, thank you. It's good to see Mr. Kozar back there. The dynamic duo was really impressive last month. Very, very impressive. But I sent them a note today of thanks from the board, because that was an awesome presentation. But Kozar will carry the day, I'm sure. Okay, let's see. So that's it for the superintendent. So we have the special education report now, right? Okay. Special ed now?
Yep.
Mr. Kennedy.
Is he on though? He was not feeling well. Is he on?
Is Mr. Kennedy on?
I'm on, Dr. Joe.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a short presentation, so if Rick can just pull it up, I'll do it quickly. Thank you for letting me do this virtually, Dr. Joe. I appreciate it.
Oh.
So just to review the Preston Ridge updates, we have a total of 6 students currently placed in the Wilkinsburg Pride program. Carrie and I developed a schedule. We've been meeting regularly with the supervisors to make any changes or discuss any concerns. We are looking at placing 2 students towards the end of the year here. We had an IEP today for 1 student to move into that program, and the parents are making a decision and letting us know. The classroom has been running really smoothly, actually. The behavior person is really working well with the students. He's done a great job. He's actually reached out to me and asked if he could work with some of the other students that are having difficulties in the school. So I would like to meet. We're going to discuss next week with the supervisors if that's a possibility. He builds relationship with the students, and they work really well for him. One thing I did want to bring up that came about, the teacher of that program actually resigned in the middle of last month. So the supervisor actually took the spot of the teacher until they can find another certified special education teacher. So she went in there right at the beginning of April, and she has been doing a great job, and I've spoken to her multiple times just to make sure that the support is being provided and there are no interruptions to the program, and that transition has gone very smoothly. The next thing I'd like to go over are the current caseloads. At Kelly, we have 2 teachers. We have 8 students and on one caseload, and the other teacher has 15 students. Speech has 35. At Turner, we have 6 teachers. We have 13 students, 11 students, 13, 6, and 6. So as you can see, the caseload numbers are relatively low. And we did add a permanent teacher for a teacher that is resigning at the end of this year. So we have our programs up and running. We have both autistic support programs running. And we have this is the most students we've ever had in that program. So we have 2 different programs, the 2 through 4 and 4 through 6. And there are currently 7 students in each of those classrooms. So we got a high number of students that transferred in from other districts. And again, as Dr. Joe and I spoke about previously, that's why our passing numbers have increased because those students that moved in have to take that test. They are not able to take the PSSA, so those numbers went even higher as we had transfer students come in. We had outplaced students. A student was placed in foster care in the Wilkinsburg School District. She attended Presley Ridge and is awarded the state. One thing that came about with this recently, due to some difficulties she's had at Presley Ridge, they asked her not to come back to the program. So we are currently involved in our interagency with PDE, the IU, and Patan to find her a current educational placement. The problem I have is we made recommendations, Kelly Majerski and I, and referrals to every school we could think of. No one is willing to accept her at this time. We are in the process of trying to recruit a teacher to go into the home that she's currently located and provide instruction there. I have not gotten any response back from that, so I'm going to post outside and see if we can find a teacher for that position. But because of this student's difficulties, it's going to be tough to find an instructor going into that home. Another student was placed in foster care in the Wilkinsburg School District.
May I interrupt before we leave this topic, Mr. Kennedy? Have you evaluated the student and contacted the Eastern area schools about the student?
The student is emotional support. So I have not contacted Sunrise about them. We were looking at APSs as she requires a partial hospitalization program and med management.
So she's not a candidate for Sunrise?
No.
Okay.
What is
much more restrictive environment with a psychiatrist on staff and a partial hospitalization program.
Wow.
Eastern Areas is one of the highest level performing schools for special needs children that we have available. So if they cannot meet the need here, certainly we can't meet the need. Am I mistaken about that?
That's correct. So I made every APS in the area, and we made a referral to. The only place that was willing to give her a tour is Longmore Academy, which is located in Mars, PA. The difficulty is they cannot get the student in a vehicle to go out and take the tour. So she's being very difficult, and there are extenuating circumstances, family circumstances that are providing a lot of barriers for this student.
I'd like to set up a discussion about this student with Dr. Maluchnik and yourself, if I could.
Absolutely.
Okay. Let's see if we can get a discussion about that. I appreciate the effort that you're going through here. to try to place this student. It seems very difficult, but I'd like to make sure we're doing every single thing we can possibly do to meet the student's need.
Sure. And at that meeting, Eric, I can be more specific on the steps that we're taking and who is all involved in the educational decision maker, kids' voice. And I can go through step by step because we have a team that's working on a plan. So I can be more specific during that meeting.
Which I very much appreciate. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. Thank you.
You're welcome. We had another student placed in foster care that is currently attending Westinghouse, just had the IEP. The student is a senior and they will graduate at the end of this school year. And I have to give a lot of props to the PPS teachers who have provided individual attention to the student and gone out of their way to make her education a success, which I did share with PPS. And, I shared with the principal, Westinghouse, during the meeting that they had made a huge success for this student and made a huge difference in her education.
That's good to hear. Thanks, Aaron.
You're welcome.
Anything else?
No, that's all I have at this time.
All right. Thank you. Feel better.
Okay. Thank you.
So the remainder of the academic reports, Principal McClellan, Ms. Pendro, Ms. Gardowski, the marketing report from Kelly Hanna will all be on next month's agenda. So we jump ahead to report H from facilities. Ed Rosniak. I keep putting an N in your name. I'm sorry, Rod.
People do that. My name's Ed. I'm also the facility director for the local part of schools. I'm glad to be here and look around and make recommendations to Rick and Dr. Joe. Some of the things that are happening, there's a lot that's happening, so I'm just going to try to make it short, is that at Kelly right now, we have new dispensers, chemical dispensers for the custodians, that they just basically press a button, it goes into their buckets, and there's also one for spray handles. A lot of times we would buy gallons, and we'd say 1 cup for 2 gallons, but everybody thinks more is better, and it's not. So this way, we're going to save money by putting these units in Kelly and Turner, and it's been successful, and I believe they like it. A lot of these are newer products. We're always meeting with the vendors to see what's good to keep the students healthy along with the staff members. So that's always ongoing. Some of the things at Turner that's happened is the chairlift on the 3rd floor is now secured to the wall, is now waiting for state inspection. Once we get that inspected, all the lifts and the elevators will be certified through the state. So that's our last piece of Turner. Also at the administrative building, the server room AC unit should have been installed, but unfortunately there was a part that went bad and we're waiting that part to come in. And also there's a roof that's slated to be installed on the administration building. I like to say weather permitting if it doesn't rain, but I guess we could also throw snow in there too, because we never know. They may throw some snow flurries in. Also, the back to the cleaning end, there's also what we had purchased is a robotic UV cleaner that'll go into the actual classrooms. Once the cleaning's done from top to bottom, they'll be able to press a button. They'll be synchronized to go into all the classrooms as long as the hallway, and the cleaning people will leave, custodians will leave, and in the morning it'll go back to home base. And this is also being used in hospitals all throughout. It's all the schools I'm hearing that they're also picking this up too and bringing them.
And we have one of those now.
We bought 2, and then I'm hoping by school year that we can implement it, get used to running them. And once you put it in the computer, it'll basically go in and out the doors all by itself. So I'm hoping that the kids as well, the staff members will be a little bit more healthier next year. And just some things, and I'm sure Rick likes opening his door every morning and seeing papers of quotes on the floor that I need him to sign. But some of the things that we've been getting quotes for was replacement for fence for Kelly and also the play area, paving the play area. The high school, the repair of the fire line that broke in the wintertime, very close to getting that quote to Rick in his hands. And also the storage garage for when we move the trailers out of Kelly. We'll need some storage somewhere, so I've been talking to Rick and Bill on what we need to do for that purpose. So pretty much that's all I have. Also, one more thing, the basketball hoops and boards will be scheduled for installation at Turner on the outside, about 3 or 4 weeks. And that's about it. I mean, there's a lot we could go through, but you know how buildings are. Never ending, right? Yes, that's never ending.
So I have a question.
Okay.
So going back to one of your earlier items, are you telling us that when the directions say add 1 cup, it's not better to add 2?
No.
Oh.
In fact,
Well, you learn something every day.
No, in fact, it really makes it stick. It could really go in reverse. It makes it sticky. It doesn't clean. And now the new chemicals, everybody thinks hot water. It's all cold water. It's not hot water. So you're saving energy now. It's all part of it. And when we do that, also the cost goes down with heating and cooling and the heating of the water. So we're always trying to implement things with Bill and talk of what we can do to save money along the way here too.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you.
Really glad to have you here. So moving right ahead. Here we go. So Mr. Kozar is going to come on. Let's see. Next week. I'm sorry. Oh, Mr. Strauss, finance.
All good. No problem. Yeah, so I'll go quick, and then Rick, feel free to add anything else as well. First thing I want to do is thank Rick for all the work he's doing. I know we have capital projects on the horizon, end of the year budget, all this ESSER funds from the government, everything that we're juggling now, and still putting us in a great position, I think, for the end of the year and then also next year. So thank you, Rick. But yeah, big picture, we're doing really well as a district financially. Looks like we're going to have another positive year for the fund balance. And then we'll be able to, talk about how we want to spend some capital dollars, utilize ESSER funds. But there's nothing huge to report, but it's optimistic in the sense that we're able to kind of order some things for next year. And I know Dr. Joe and Rick have already done that because we do have extra dollars to utilize. So that does free up a lot of money for next year to just make sure we're more liquid and can make some strategic decisions. So Rick, is there anything else you want to add specifically? But, big picture, I think we're doing really well financially, and that's big for just a school district to hear.
No, the only thing is that we'll be communicating with the board and the public here on more budget meetings and budget hearings coming up over the next couple weeks. So Rob and I will put together a schedule, and that'll go out to the board and to the public for presentations.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. So over the next 2 weeks, Rick and I are going to have a schedule drafted with specific dates, May through June, on kind of targets for the board and the public to be in the know on where everything lands with the budget, but also different conversations around opportunities to use the fund balance creatively. So no, we're excited for that, but yeah, definitely more information to come.
All right. Thank you, Rob. And while we're giving kudos to Rick, you've got some too. Also, thank you. Thank you. Really, you make this learning curve look short.
Yeah. Thanks.
So next week we will vote to approve 2 sets of minutes. One for the legislative session in March, and the other for the special voting session on April 12th. So now we move to section 5, education and curriculum. Sometimes too often.
Ed, excuse me. Before we move on from that particular topic, I'd just like to note for the record, I've been reading the meeting minutes. The meeting minutes of late have been simply recording the votes we take. They have not been recording the context of the discussions that we have. Under Debbie, when Debbie was doing minutes, she was recording the context of the discussions. That's no longer happening. I just want to note that for the record, and that my preference is to have that discussion available for review. I'd like to have the context of several of those discussions. So I just want to note that for the record. I'm not going to be voting to approve the minutes until that starts to happen.
Okay, thank you. We need to look at, I need to look at one of the former and one of the current and see what we can do about that. Thanks for pointing that out. Okay, so let's see. So now we have Ms. Pender and Mr. Kozar about the new math curriculum. See if you can beat last week's show.
We do have attached to the board agenda the quotes that we received from the company that we are choosing. But what Mike is going to do is take you through a presentation to kind of give the history of where we started and how we came to our decision. So,
thank you for having us again. Derek couldn't be here today. Who's advancing the slides?
Rick, I think.
Rick. Okay, there's a lot. So
we'll be going through a lot of the slides very quickly.
All right, so this process has taken a couple of years, to be honest with you, and I want to give some background as to where we've been in rebuilding this process. So, okay. So I'm going to show you where we're at right now and how we got there. So there's a slide for where we are, where we've been. That's the theme of the first set of slides. The current series that we've been using is called Go Math. Houghton Mifflin Harcourt developed this upon culmination of the new Common Core standards in the early second decade of the 2000s, if you will. Common Core standards came out in 2010. This is one of the very first curriculums that came out, and we've been using it since 2014. But this curriculum was not adopted in any kind of a way that involved anybody other than if we were told we were going to be getting it. The administrators were part of it, teachers. Ed probably remembers Barb Mihailov.
I do.
She kind of asked me what I thought of us just getting Go Math, and I said, well, I think we should try to adopt it properly, and she said, well, we're getting it. So
What was her
apologies.
position?
Apologies to Barb. She was a distinguished educator that was overseeing our district. And at the time, we needed something that was Common Core ready. So we kind of skipped the whole adoption process. Next one, Rick. Thank you. So even though it was based on Common Core, it wasn't very well aligned necessarily with Pennsylvania's version of it. And there was not enough rigor or problem solving in the testing grades 3 through 6. So K1 and 2 is still using Go Math because it doesn't diverge nearly as much at that level as it does as you get towards the testing grades. And so everybody's been supplementing still, even at those grade levels. 3rd through 6th has been supplementing a lot for several years. Next one, thanks, Rick. So like I was saying, they've been supplementing the PA standards with appropriate resources. There's so much now online that's free, that's available for people to download. And they've been doing a great job working with what they have. But they knew the Go Math just didn't have enough, and they kept getting tired of supplementing for Go Math, and eventually just realized that trying to follow those textbooks, they were jumping around too much, and it wasn't even feasible. This year, however, 6th grade has one person teaching all the math. We call that departmentalization. So she has been piloting a new program, we'll call it the 2nd generation of Common Core, called Into Math by same company, Harcourt, and it was released in 2020. So we're talking about right before the pandemic, it was pretty much finished. Next slide. So just to sum it up with the color of these slides, we haven't really properly adopted a textbook for any kind for math since 2009. Back then, we actually had everyday math, and then we had Math Connects and a Houghton Mifflin product back then, and we did it for a whole year. Each grade level was split into different programs. We were comparing success and ins and outs. So when we adopted Math Connects in 2010, a few months later, they released Common Core standards, and we adopted that right before based on the old standards, if you will. So we've been supplementing for double-digit years. That's the reality of it. So what do we do now? Next slide, Rick. We're gonna get the ball rolling. COVID hit. I'm at home. I'm supporting classrooms as best I can. And Dr. Joe says to me, reach out to other districts that are like ours and see what they're using. So I did. Connected with a lot of districts like ours, Duquesne, Stowe Rocks, McKeesport, to name a few. And they were in the same boat. They were kind of thinking we need to switch something up. They were using something that had come out right at the culmination of Common Core, and it wasn't working for them. So the programs that I discovered were Envision. Some people were using Go Math, but they were trying to get rid of it. My Math, Eureka, Ready Math, and something called Bridges as potential programs to look into. So during that springtime when the students were home, everybody was at home in 2020, I was doing some research. And what I found, next slide, Rick, is there's a lot of problems with those first generation programs. They kind of just said, oh, we got to show the kids 500 ways to add numbers because that's what Common Core is. No, you allow students to deeply understand the process of adding. If they discover some new ways and use their creativity to find those, fine. But you just don't show them, do it this way, then you can do it this way, and you can do, that's what those programs were doing. And it wasn't based on problem solving, it was based on the same old, here's how you do it, you give it back to me. Like McDonald's, I'm gonna show you how to make a cheeseburger, we're gonna do one together, and then I'm gonna watch you do one yourself. If you get it right, great. If not, we're gonna start with step one again. So, in the fall of 2020, next slide, Rick, we started reaching out to some publishers based on what I, some of the curriculums that I had found. So now we're in not this school year, but the last school year. We found a site, Ms. Pedro found one called edreports.org, and there's a clip, I just did a little snip of what they will show you. They'll have it for every grade level. That's just a clip of like what your report on edreports.org looks like. So it's kind of like, oh, I want to buy a car. I'm going to go look at consumer reports and compare them. That's what this does for education curriculum. And you can like sort it by subject area, grade level. So this is the type of thing that we found with some of the programs on there. And you can see that like the kindergarten program you're looking at, I'm not even sure what it was, but 14 out of 14 goals for that program, they said they meet all 14. Rigor in math practices, 17 out of 18. Usability, 35 out of 38, and it's aligned to Common Core. So did you want to share anything about EdReports at all?
Just that from what Mike had done, at the start of the pandemic to kind of even digging deeper, this has been just a very valuable source to then, take it 2 years after the start of him looking into it to say, okay, where are we now? Since some of those programs had, were released in 2020, and this was able to, take the guessing out of where do we focus. And that's where the next slide will show. This is where we took all of those programs, talked to other districts and said, okay, we're going to dig deeper into these following programs. Some of them were some that he had investigated prior to pandemic or start of pandemic, and some were newer. And then he's going to talk you through our process with ILT, myself and the math coaches, and even visiting school districts to where we are today.
Right.
Hey, Mike, could you go over the list of schools you mentioned? I remember Stowe Rocks and Duquesne. What were the other schools?
Duquesne. Let's try to remember. East Allegheny was one. Clairton, yes. Jeanette, I believe, was one. And McKeesport, yep. It's on another document. Don't
Yeah,
have
the
it here,
whole
but
spreadsheet.
some were definitely similar demographics to us.
It's a good sample.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the ones that you see on the screen are the ones that had all green in EdReports. That slide that was previous, it showed the little green circles. These programs were given those high ratings. So if you ever see in your, future green on EdReports, that's a big curriculum hashtag line. That's what they're talking about. So those are the 5 that we started looking into during that year that we were kind of at home. Students were at home, but we were teaching virtually. So we were just trying to figure out how to educate them from screen to screen at that point.
So during that time, we were able to find time to do virtual presentations from different companies, where kids in the building, it's been a challenge to get everyone together, but we were able to use that time during virtual learning to even dig deeper. So
Right, and that's what the next
basically
slide.
what the next slide says.
Yeah, so we were able to get some presentations, and we started involving our teacher leaders as well. We have one teacher representative from each grade level that's on a team called ILT, or Instructional Leadership Team. And so Into Math, Ready Math, and Eureka gave us virtual presentations during that year that we were at home, and everything was scheduled on Google Calendar. And then we also received some actual physical samples from Into Math and Ready Math. Eureka had a lot of free online resources, and 3rd and 4th grade teachers have been pulling a lot of those free resources. Good ways to teach math, not knocking it. It was hard to really get a pilot going, though. You'll see on the next slide. To try something out. The kids were at home, and then all of a sudden we find out in March through Dr. Iverson, hey, we're coming back hybrid. We're going to take PSSA this year. We're like, okay, great. So it kind of, we slowed down because of that, and knew that if we were back this year face-to-face, we'd be able to really get some stuff accomplished. And so that's where the next slide, we said we're grabbing the baton. We're going to start involving our leadership team more and dig deeper into the math programs. So let's talk a little bit about what's going on in grade 6. Our teacher, Jen Harding, she's doing an awesome job. Into Math, the Harcourt rep, sales rep, was quick on it. We said, what if we piloted something, because you're the only person teaching it. So you could, you wouldn't have to collaborate and make sure you're all on the same page. You'd be on the same page with yourself. And it's no, if you're going to teach the same thing more than once in a day, I guarantee you, if you show it to one class, you kind of learn a little bit as a teacher. You're always learning. The second lesson's a little better, because you kind of know where they might trip a little. You kind of try to anticipate. Then the third one's even better. So she's teaching this 3 times a day. And Darren Cole and myself are in there a lot. We've been supporting her quite a bit through this process. My next slide I put in there, he and I have been attending the Math Coach Network at the Allegheny Intermediate Unit for several years. They finally just got it back this year face-to-face after 2 years of hiatus. And this kind of goes with the theme of, what I am passionate about, to be honest. We have to focus on what's really going on when you're solving a math problem. Not just saying, oh, I got the right answer and great, I can do anything. I'm going to move on. I can shut my brain off. No, it's how did I get there? If you're going to try to learn how to change brakes on a car, you definitely would want to kind of understand what's going on when you're taking it apart. Not just like, oh, look, it's going to stop my car now. But it's all those things that are important to do along the way. So these lessons, next slide, Rick. These lessons in Into Math are designed around problem solving. Remember, I told you they were just showing them how to do everything in the first generation Common Core. This program here is showing them it's a lot of word problems. It's a lot of problem solving. It's a lot of real life application. And I brought a little bit of testing data that wasn't shared with you guys. I think we talked about CDT, or Classroom Diagnostic Tools, last time. Can you go to the next slide, Rick? We gave them one of these in, I think February, to one of the 6th grade blocks, and we saw some really good scores on algebraic concepts in 6th grade. Algebraic concepts is the most heavily questioned section of PSSA for 6th graders. It's about 35% of the test. And you've got a lot of kids 2.5 months before the test that are already proficient in algebraic concepts. If you're in green or blue, your proficiency are better. Can you go to the next slide? And then there's another one from her second block that has data.
Excuse me. Sorry, real fast. Hey, this is Michael. What exactly are algebraic concepts?
So algebraic concepts, one of the things would be representing a word problem using a mathematical sentence.
Okay, got you. Like a train leaves from Pittsburgh at 50 miles an hour.
In kindergarten, mathematical or algebraic concepts would look like a pattern. You know, red, blue, red. What comes next? So there's building blocks for algebra all the way down even into kindergarten. So it's in 6th grade, it's starting to get a little abstract there. You're learning how to solve simple equations with variables. They're graphing inequalities. So it would be a little bit of pre-algebra, if you will. They've really pushed a lot of high school and 8th grade concepts down to the 6th grade.
I'm sorry, could you back up 2
Thank
slides? Somebody has a question.
Sure.
Go back to the slide.
Hi, this is Eric Steadley here, and I'd like to add, I think it's one more slide.
Go back one more.
Is that it?
Are you,
Yeah. Yeah, and I, you know, I'm appreciating. I'm trying to, you know, digest all of the material that's being presented here, and I just want to ask a question, because you know I appreciate what the focus on the problem solving part is here, but the problem that I have with the statement here is rather than just determining the correct answer. You know, I think that it's important in education not just to solve problems, but also to determine the correct answer. There always is a correct answer. You know, in education, we help students understand that. I am, you know, I'm trying to really understand the value of the type of education that you're and the program that you're offering here. But when you don't determine the correct answer, that doesn't seem like the right thing. That doesn't seem like the right goal to me. I just want to note that for the record. Like, let's make sure that after we, you know, make sure that we get the correct problem solving, we make sure we also give the students the idea of what the correct answer is.
Yeah. Hey, Eric, you know what? I see exactly what you mean. This is Ed. When I read that, I read it a little differently than you, and I put the emphasis on just. So rather than just getting the right answer, let's also understand the process of getting there. So I just read it a little differently than you did. I agree with you entirely, but I put the emphasis on a different word, and I think it changes the statement a little bit.
And it's kind of nice.
That's great. Can we remember that we're including a public audience here? I mean, that's easily misinterpreted.
Yeah, well, that's just the way I read it, but I completely see how you got what you got, and I would agree with you. I just I was just offering a different interpretation of the same sentence.
Which
but I agree with you.
Now that you've explained it to me, I agree as well. Presentation.
Okay.
Presentation.
I mean, I think you got to ask the question because everybody might not get it that way. So
Right,
you
right.
pointed out a point that need to be clarified because Juanita and I just said, like, I definitely thought of this in a way of like, show me how you got this answer.
Yeah.
Like, we got this answer, but how did you get it?
Right.
Because if we're thinking about students who maybe, oh, I overheard he said this answer. So I wrote the right answer down, but how did you get that answer?
Right.
Teacher always says, show your work, not just.
You kind of took the words out of my mouth. That's exactly what I'm saying. It doesn't mean that the correct answer proves you understand the process. It's the evidence that you got the process. But if a student has the right answer and can explain how they got it, that probably means they can find more correct answers, not just, you know, maybe kind of watching it and I got this problem right. Can they replicate that when the problem's presented a little differently? So that's why, you know, we're trying to get away from problems that have numbers out of context. We call them naked numbers. Computation, if you will, just a page full of facts. That doesn't mean they don't need to know their facts, because that's going to make it easier when they really have to think deeply about how to solve a problem. But the process of how you get there and what's happening, what's the action of addition? How is multiplication like addition, and how is it really kind of different? And it opens us up into 2 dimensions now.
I think that's sometimes the difference between meeting the standard or exceeding the standard as well.
Right.
As you saw in our PSSA data, we're not getting a lot of advanced kids. So that's why the project-based activities, the problem-solving process, and hopefully we can get more kids, not just proficient, but advanced, exceeding.
Yeah,
Right.
and just thinking like when I was in school, you had those, I forget what they were called, but you would push the button to get the right answer for your multiplication tables. So it was more of a memorization thing. I don't know how I got this. I just remembered 9 times 9 is
81.
Yeah. I almost say 18. No, I almost say 18, but then my mind went to like the opposite, like 9 times 9, 9 times 1. But yeah, like you just memorized it.
I mean, it's not even just,
I got a baby.
as we rethink education, back when we went to school, it's, you know, we knew who the 16th president was. But what me, I can Google that. Okay, what impact did that 16th president have on you today?
Yeah.
You know, World War II, we know the years because I can Google it. What impact? And so digging deeper in the 21st century is
understanding. Yeah. I was like,
And one or two problems students are focusing on versus 20 to 30 problems is where the shift is changing.
Yeah.
And we have found that as we, looked into these programs and digging deeper. And that's where I think that statement is coming in.
Good discussion, thanks.
Okay. Yeah. So I gave a little bit of evidence as to, using a program that's problem-based, problem-solving based. Go ahead to the next one. So the conclusion for, that I'm coming up with our 6th grade, and they're enjoying it. They like math. She's not just using the new program. She's using other problem-based things to warm their brains up at the beginning of class. Okay, where are we at? Can you go to the next one there?
So the next slide is just going to show, if you move to the next one, we've, digging deeper into some other programs besides Into Math. Yes, we did pilot Into Math in 6th grade and we still are, but we wanted.
Go back.
Yeah, right there. Next.
Next one.
Yeah. So we had more virtual presentations around other programs and teachers were receiving materials too. So that's what these programs are.
So we were able to give out, next slide, Rick. We were able to give out the curriculum samples and we got a lot from Into Math that the 6th grade teacher piloted and another one called Envision, which is one of the ones I discovered in some school districts that had been redone. They kind of went back to the drawing board and changed the program based on feedback from the schools. And so we gave those out. With our ILT team, we began to compare these two programs, Into Math and Envision Math. I don't want to go into all the reasons why, unless you want, why we didn't necessarily have all the other ones up there, but these two were kind of like the ones we ended up coming to a consensus that we were probably going to go one way or another by the end of January. So, talking about 2.5 months ago, it was either going to probably be Into Math or Envision Math, and teachers were using materials from both, meeting as grade level teams, coming back to us, myself, Ms. Pedro, Mr. Cole, and we would, chew on things and talk about them. So she said, I want to get us into schools and see these programs at work in a school. So grabbing the baton with that, we went to West Mifflin 2 different times. One, we went to a primary school to see Into Math, and then we went and saw it at an intermediate school. We went to Plumboro at the intermediate level. That was 5th and 6th grade to see Envision. So their demographic was a bit different than ours. It's a lot different, to be honest. So then we went to Jeanette and viewed Envision. It's got a much higher percent poverty. At the primary and they had kind of like a similar school. They had like a K-6 building. Yeah. I know we have 2 schools. They just have one primary intermediate center. We were able to see, they let about 5 or 6 of us come in there to view it in several grade levels in Jeanette. And so we, after those, checking it out and seeing how things went, we put together a Google Form survey to get final thoughts from teachers. We asked our ILT reps to say, what do you guys think? We've been looking at these and here's some quotes from them. I'm not sure what grade level this is from, but they felt that Envision had clear data for intervention and level tiers built in. There is project-based learning activities, thank you, for students who learn better that way. And the online piece for Envision is really strong and is compatible with Duke Classroom. 5th grade teachers liked Envision better. Projects, again, pre-assessments to each unit, so teachers can intervene where necessary, leveled activities for below, on, and enrichment levels. Next one. Regarding Into Math, this was a grade level that liked Into Math better. We liked how their benchmark assessments are linked and grouped for you. And then in parentheses, she wrote, we know Envision could do this too. We like their differentiated instruction, small group options. At the beginning of Spark Your Learning, that gave a nice intro. They liked the list. They listed the materials you needed. So they picked Into Math. Next one. This was more of a bulleted list. They said they liked Envision better because, again, better examples of strategies. The online parts are better. Presentation of the student's workbook was laid out better. That's one of the things we kept hearing from our teachers in more like off-the-record conversations, that the way Envision was laid out was more student-friendly and didn't have so much on a page that a student would say, I don't feel like doing this right now. And the pictures were better. Another one, online resources, again, are in favor of Envision, being that the pandemic is still a thing. Could we be virtual again? I can't predict what we're going to have tomorrow, so who knows? But definitely hearing that makes me definitely want to lean towards something that supports our learners better in an online scenario. Also, for previous skill needs taught, yeah. And this one, I appreciate our 1st grade teacher and our ILT team because if you notice, Go Math that we were using at the beginning of my presentation and this Into Math is the same company, they felt that at the 1st grade level especially, it was just a glorified version of what they already had. And they had actually no online components for K and 1 yet, and we're hoping to have it by this fall. And that's kind of like, that's tough. That's kind of a deal breaker for our kindergarten and 1st grade teachers.
Which one doesn't have a kindergarten, 1st grade?
The Into Math.
So
The one that our
Bible
6th grade
program.
teacher was piloting. Next one. Special Ed actually gave us some feedback on this as well. They like strong vocabulary usage in Envision and open-ended responses, opportunities for partner work, putting kids together with different abilities. So we did a survey. Next slide will show you a little graphic real quick as to who picked what.
And so you can see that is a representation of the ILT leader versus all teachers. That's why there's only 8. If you wondered that.
Give me ILT.
So ILT, there's 1 teacher per grade level.
What does it stand for?
Oh, Instructional Leadership Team.
Thank you. Yes.
Dr. Iverson, I think she.
It was familiar. I
Right.
can't remember what
Yes.
it's the.
And so that included a special ed teacher. They represented the.
I'm like, what is ILT? Thanks.
So that shows you.
So I have 2 more slides to talk about the online component of Envision called Success Maker. I like it because it adapts as the kids work through the program. If they're struggling, it scaffolds back to where their gap is so that they can learn what they need to move on. If you've ever, it's more of a last 10, 15 years thing where online tests are now, a lot of them are adaptive. If you're assessing a student and they're getting a lot of questions right, it will ramp them up to the next grade level in questions.
This does that.
Yes.
Front and back, front was that backwards.
Goes both ways, that's right. So it's gonna pinpoint where they're at. If you've got a 5th grader that scores, around the middle of 3rd grade, you're gonna know, wow, those 4th grade questions were hard also, besides the 5th grade ones. And we can kind of see where they've got some things now they figured out with the 3rd grade math, but we've got some ground to make up.
Gentlemen, that's why I was pushing Carnegie Learning, but they didn't have the materials.
They
to go
didn't
with it,
have
but this has both. So
Yes,
that's awesome. Thanks.
this will have both, and this will help replace, if you remember back at the beginning of the year when we did Imagine Learning again for like a 1-year contract, they have that piece, but it's just Imagine Math. It's
Right.
not connecting.
And
And
it's
this
not
will
adapting.
connect, and adapt to our needs, and then it will flow with the Envision Math.
Great.
Doing both. So that's where you'll see the quotes for both, because we feel this is a big piece for our students.
There's
also.
only one slide left, I believe.
Yep.
Right? That's one. So because of those reasons, and we surveyed our teachers. So that what's the most interesting thing to me is our 6th grade teacher that teaches math all day, and she's really into it. She's ensconced in math. She's willing to switch to Envision after doing Into Math. That means more work for her. That means she's got to let. That's a.
Michelle.
So she's talking about my word ensconced, I think.
I don't know.
So we're recommending Envision Math. I mean, it's up to you all. If you want to do some research on your own, or if you have more questions at this point. I know I said a lot of words.
But we wanted you to see the process that we
No,
took
that was
to go through it.
That's
That was
good.
really good.
Yeah.
And the piece that the teachers, played in it.
And to give Darren Cole his props as well. We worked on that together. That's not just me.
Right.
I'm just here to do the talk.
But he said he did
We
more.
collaborated.
He said he did more than
Oh,
you
yeah.
put your name on it. I think that's what he said.
Yeah, he'll if he was here, you'd have parting gifts on your way out the door.
The whole Go Math debacle was really interesting. That was the race to the top money was running out. All these acronyms back then. Barb Mihalik had only a tiny amount of time to come up
And
with
see, that's
something
not her
before
fault
grant
either.
money
It
ran
just
out.
was what it was.
Yeah.
And Go Math said,
I think
we
the
have a
problem is
program,
we kept it
Common
too
Core.
long. It's not just that we bought the
That's
wrong
true.
thing. We kept
That's
doing it
true.
over
It
and
was
over
too
and over again for all these years, So,
Well, and
this is the way to do it. Thank you so much.
And I think too, that's important with Envision. Into Math is a brand new program. Envision has been around since Common Core, but like Mike said, it has been updated and has been successful in other districts. Like I said, Into Math, a lot of teachers liked it. But when we went down to the two, Envision was what was better for our students. And they've had time to work with it. Like I said, that visit, I think, at Jeanette really kind of sealed that, where Envision is working in a district like that.
So I just Googled it just so I can look it up. I'm really interested in it, but there's a lot of different, Google pulls everything. I don't want an Amazon link. But what would be a good resource to just do further, like after today, like looking into it? I found
Savvis?
Savvis, yeah.
Savvis is the company that
That's it,
produces
okay.
it.
And if you go to Ed Reports, that was referenced in here, you can find the program and it shows that chart, but you can actually click on it and it digs deeper into the research. But you can also go to the site.
Michelle Lucas raised her hand. Michelle?
Sure.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, guys. I didn't realize I wasn't muted. I was not commenting to anyone there. Somebody in my house said something, and I was like, oh God, when they said it. And then I heard someone say my name, and I looked, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm not muted. So sorry. Nothing against you there, Mr. Kozar.
I'll just pick on you a little bit tomorrow for that.
That's all right. Sorry, guys.
Okay, all right. So last month we presented some data. We've got some gaps in math to fill. I'll be honest. I mean, when I talked to the Jeanette teachers that do Envision, they said their principal sat with us and he said it was tough at first. Teachers were like, I don't know about this, but they persevered through it. The rigorous problems are in there. It's gonna be like trying to start a train from stop. It's gonna spin for a little while. And that's why, I'm there, Mr. Cole is there to help teachers with that, grease the wheels a little. And I thought to myself, man, I hope, if we get this thing, it's gonna, teachers will stick with it. And I thought to myself, why do we want to lower our expectations anymore? The more you lower that bar, then if they don't reach it, they're still lower. So it's gonna be a challenge at first, I think, but that anytime you adopt a new program, there's a learning curve.
I just found out that I think doing the right amount of PD will probably be critical to this. We can buy all this stuff with ESSER money and then spend the title money on the PD to support this, which is, we used to have to spend
Right.
title money to buy all of it. You know what I mean?
I
Now
see.
we can buy this with ESSER to spend the title money on really good PD. Sorry to, I mean, I hope we can, you know, and so.
No, absolutely, and we plan on kind of doing like a kind of little preview actually next month. Just, and hoping if it's approved that we get the order in right away. Teachers will have online logins to the digital platform, which a lot of them are already familiar with because they've already done like PD at home where they were digging into it and kind of just do like a little preview in May and then continue with PD in the fall and continue that cycle. And then the math coaches play a big role in that coaching model ongoing.
Right.
So when would we start implementing this, in the fall?
Yes.
Right,
Mhm.
okay.
So thinking about the kids, because, you know, as the adults and the teachers in the space that are learning something new, may have moments of just like frustration because it is different, and implementing it into our classrooms. How are we, you know, thinking about that transition for the students and how that's affecting their learning as well? Because they may not understand, oh, it's a different curriculum, but they can feel when, you know, it's
My
my
teacher
teacher
pool.
sixth grade.
This year kind of showed, you know, and Mike was in that room a lot more than I was, but even just looking at like our sixth grade classroom, you know, coming back from a pandemic, all of sixth grade was piloting into math, which is very similar to Envision, and there was struggles. But I feel that even the collaboration and the communication amongst the teacher and the students, they're just into it more than what it was. So I think it will be a learning curve for all, but I think even as we cycle, even with Spanish, you know, we're cycling through each year. One thing that stood out to me from, you know, Dr. Joe coming in when he was principal saying, I'd go into classrooms and I wouldn't see the consistency from first or, you know, third grade to fifth grade. And we're going to see that consistency because the way that it's presented to students is going to be the same. So that continuum is going to be there, and those cohort of students are going to be able to adjust. And, you know, the mathematical practices that we keep learning about are going to be more deeper embedded. So I think it's just going to make the process even easier for students.
I like the fact that it starts from kindergarten, you know,
Yeah.
we haven't had that. But also, I had a point, it was something else I was gonna say. Oh, I know, the departmentalization. So we tried it this year for sixth grade. Are there any thoughts on like what are we gonna do next year? Are we gonna continue that? And also, are we gonna expand that maybe to other grades?
And we've definitely talked about it. Jeanette departmentalized all the way down to first grade,
So I
which
think what
was
we-
like, you know,
Yeah, and we wouldn't roll it out, and that's what they explained to me, because it has been successful in sixth grade. I think that's where I agree with Dr. Iverson when she implemented the ILT.
Yes.
It kind of reminds me of an old general saying, hey, lead from the back. And I'm like, lead from the back? What do you mean by lead from the back? Let your staff be the leaders, you just guide them along the way. And I think that's why Dr. Iverson put the ILT teams in for situations just like this. And then at the end of this year, we just sit down and do a SWOT analysis. What was the strengths of this year? What were the weaknesses? What are some opportunities where that may come into play and say, hey, maybe our fifth grade team wants to do something differently, and maybe our RTI groups didn't work. So I think we did a lot this year. I think we really need to sit down with that ILT team and
have a
if
discussion.
they as a group say, hey, we think we may want this fifth grade, we think it's going to be best for kids, not for them, but for kids. But yeah, we haven't rolled any of that out.
Yeah. Because it's definitely working in sixth grade.
Well, that's what if it's working, because we tried it, that's what I'm curious, like, how did it go? And if it went well, it seems to me like we want to continue that, but also continue.
It's been going well from the beginning.
And other grade levels, yeah. I mean, I was one of that.
Yeah, so that's on Dr. Joe's list of discussions with ILT before the end of the year, just kind of doing exactly what he said, what's working, what's
To
not.
me, it's like a little bit more of an expert in your grade level. Like, well, I'm not just going through with the same person all day. I'm going to go to the person who's only focused on math right now, and that's what they're pouring themselves into. So I'm going to get the best math lesson I can because they're not playing in social studies, science, and reading as well. And I can see that. I know the sixth grade teacher seems to be pretty happy with the way it's working, not just Mrs. Harding.
Yeah, not just a math.
I mean, I love the
Oh,
idea that just, because you give people, find what their strengths are. I know I was teaching, I would prefer to teach English or something else or math. Like, I wouldn't want to be the math teacher, but there are teachers, where I might think I can teach it, but, we departmentalize it. I can focus in on what I'm strong at, what I'm passionate about. And so I think that's great. I love the idea. I also love the fact that that this is happening. I just want to put that out there, that we are involving all of you on this process and implementing, possibly implementing this new math program. I think that's so important to have all of your input because you guys are the experts, and so it's good to hear from all of you, to have all of you have been a part of this is amazing and wonderful. And I know I'm going to trust your judgment. I don't think I know better than you. I'm going to look at it, but it doesn't mean, I'm still going to trust you guys. I'm not going to say, no, I think we should go into that.
Right.
Like I hear what you're saying, and we need to trust you guys and what you're doing. And you guys have been working on this for 2 years. So I think that's amazing. And I'm really excited to see where this is going to take our students.
Thank you so much.
I'm just
Thank
looking
you very
like
much.
this right now.
Yeah.
Be
Thank
sure
you for having us.
Be sure to thank Darren too, but thanks.
Yeah, I will,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
We share an office, something.
And the quotes are on there, so you can see the quote at the beginning, it breaks it down. And they are separate. So I did have the company separate the success maker and
From
the
that.
quote for Envision. And it does have us, I believe, in a 5-year cycle. So there's replenishments of those materials for 5 years. So that would be a cost. There may be extra costs if we add another teacher, or, we want to make sure that the math coaches have all the materials to be able to support, or, a new special ed teacher. But that, where we stand and even projecting what we thought next year was kind of, we want it all. And it's there.
Yeah, we'll get it up, and we can schedule learning walks with the board as we get this going up and running. Like this year, it would have been nice to see the board come in. We bought these whiteboard tables and watching students around the tables with the math coaches, writing on the table, analyzing, thinking, and doing the work. So we can schedule learning walks with the board next year.
Can't wait.
No, I
Can't wait.
definitely love it. And these are the things, y'all know, my marketing hat is coming on, like, these are the things that people want to see.
Yeah.
Like, this is what, as someone who literally needs to call tomorrow, like, stop my kid up for school, like, this is what people want to see and hear when they're, want to trust bringing their kids to school here. I tell people all the time, like, our schools are doing the work that we need to, improve the education that our kids are receiving. And we have a great opportunity in our district because of how focused we can be on our kids. So kudos.
And
Thank
we do
y'all.
have materials. We were just saying, like, we talked about bringing them before break, and then today I think it was like, boom, we were back. And we forgot to bring like a grade level, but you can go online and see them. But we do have materials in the schools if anyone would like to look at it.
Can we get those brought to central office just in case they want to come out and take a look over it next week?
Yeah, we can definitely, grab a sample, like a student
Yeah,
sample,
we
so
can.
you can see what it looks like and have a.
Yeah, I meant to remind everybody about that, but as long as we get to see it, so that's great.
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much.
Have a
Thanks
good
so much.
night.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Hope it's not
Thank you,
snowing.
guys.
Okay, we have miles to go before we sleep. Section 6, instructional staff, Dr. Melisnik.
Okay. First one?
Yeah, okay, Lee.
Yeah. Okay, board, you on the first?
Oh, that's right, yeah. Hey,
President.
Lee.
Yeah, I was waiting for him to go back.
Oh, okay.
To approve an unpaid leave for Alexander Coyle, special ed teacher at Kelly Primary on May 2nd, 2022. We also have an intermittent FMLA request for Diane Wells, special education teacher at Turner, beginning April 11th, 2022 through June 10th, 2022. Another intermittent FMLA is requested to approve Brenda Quill's literacy coach for an intermittent FMLA beginning March 31st through September 13th, 2022. An unpaid leave, the board action is requested to approve Michelle Lucas for unpaid leave Tuesday, April 19th, 2022 through April 22nd, 2022. And board action requested approve creating 3 new instructional positions for the 22-23 school year. And our thought process on that, just to give you a heads up, is we really want to, there's a real teacher shortage. We have to beat school districts to the punch on this. With these 3 positions, we can use them. One is classroom teachers or interventionalists. And then, possibly if we have the right amount, this would give us 2 at each building. It possibly could even loop with the kids. And of course, with gifted support, but we're hoping through this process that we can get some good, what's a better interview than on-the-job work, right? We don't have to keep them after 2 or 3 years if they're not successful. But also we can use ESSER funds to pay for this. And looking at the retirements, Rick and I have looked at future retirements coming in. If all 3 are worth keeping, they will fill in right in and it won't impact our budget after ESSER funds are gone. But I think we definitely have to beat the punch on some of these school districts when I hear of someone losing 20, 30, 40 teachers over the next couple of years.
Yeah. I have a question, Matt, on one of the intermittent FMLAs that it crosses school years. Is that okay? I mean, should it end at the end of this school year, and should there be another request for the next school year?
Well, your entitlement is measured within a 12-month period. So.
Okay, so it doesn't matter. Okay, thanks. I just caught that. Yeah. All right. I think that's it for those items. Is it? Okay, thanks. Let's see, committee reports. There is no joint tax committee report. I think we're still waiting for everybody to get their heads together about a time when we can meet and iron out some issues. Fortunately, I don't think there have been any applications in the meantime. Forbes Road, I don't have a report on that. I'm sorry. I don't even know when the meeting is.
Yeah, we still need a representative.
I said I would sit in on that until we get somebody, but I need the material. I need to find out when it is, when they are. So I'll talk to you tomorrow about that. Okay. Okay, good. Yeah, I can email.
Yeah, it's Thursdays. It's
Oh.
It's not, because I was gonna.
Oh, you were gonna do it.
Remember, but we thought it was Mondays, but then found out it's actually Thursdays.
What if I get it moved to Mondays? Then you'll do it. That's easy. Okay, thank you. All right, we'll work this out. And Eastern Area Schools, Mr. Steadley, any report?
Yes, several things to report. So the Eastern Area Schools District Board will meet on April 28th. That is next Thursday. I will be attending the meeting. I have discussed at length and also attended the school with Dr. Malechnik and with Benny. We've made a visit there last week. It was a very delightful experience actually to see the school and how wonderful it is and how how much benefit I think a lot of students get from that district, school district. So the AIU has put together a fantastic program there. As a participant in the jointure in the East Area Schools, we benefit from that by reduced tuition and an interest in the operation of the program there. Our students, with the most difficult of our educational needs in the special education area, they attend that district and they benefit from that. And unfortunately, we did not get to see any of our particular students there. I don't think we met any of them, but we did meet the principal and vice principal. And we attended several of the classrooms and were able to see the instruction and observe that firsthand. And we can see, pretty easily that the programs themselves are, of a high quality and one of the most, I would say, respectable of programs available. That opinion was reinforced when I talked with Dr. Palermo today from the Allegheny Intermediate Unit. He and I had discussed at length the options for continuing programs there. Currently, there is a number of considerations we have at the school, including a roof project that is currently undergoing evaluation. We are also evaluating the value of the district building there. and the programs and how they value in the neighborhood and district there, how they benefit the community. The biggest issue I've asked Rick to present and post up a considerations of jointure closure. The jointure is currently scheduled to end at the end of June. There's proposals on the table to extend it another year, possibly 2 years. The usual extension is about a 5-year period, but there's some dissent within the participating districts about whether that jointure should continue. My personal opinion is that it should. Our district in particular benefits from a very cost-effective ratio of student to a cost benefit. Some of the other districts may not feel the same way. They foot a lot more of the bill based upon their real estate value within their district. We are, evaluating what options are available if districts want to exit the jointure and what that means to them. They cannot simply exit the jointure. We could not, and they could not simply exit the jointure. They must, pay and fund the real estate holdings there until they exit the joint holding of that real estate. So there's some complicated legal matters there that need to be worked out with the board. We'll work on those this month, and I'll have a report following the meeting next week on Thursday.
Thanks, Eric. I know you inherited a complicated situation there, but thanks very much for taking that on. We appreciate it. And it's critically important. So let's see. Next week, Mr. Bosick will read the treasurer's report. Having prepared all of that, Rick will do the. You want to go over this, Rick?
Yeah, just we'll be approving the transportation law, which is just one item for $250. It is a teacher that's going on somewhere, and then the other one is the survey that we talked about through the architects to do the boundary and topography.
Okay.
One is going to an autism teacher, going to autism training.
All right. Excuse me. I know. I have something. I don't want to. I'm trying not to choke on something. Okay. I got caught eating a mint. Under board governance, next week we'll vote on the updated technical assistance proposal from the WCDC to help us with disposing of finding new use for the high school building. The updated aspect of that means that it's gone through Matt. Matt made changes, sent it to them. They incorporated all the changes. It came back. Matt blessed it, so it's ready for us to vote on it. Let's see. The next one's yours, Dr. Miloshnik, a settlement agreement. Yes.
Yeah, we'll be asking for the board to take action to approve the resignation of Ellen Ackerman, effective retroactive to March 1, 2021, and a company settlement agreement in the base.
Next will be the card reader, Rick.
Yeah, we'll be approving to install card readers at the elevators in the home at Turner Elementary.
All right, and we'll have the family literacy satellite, Dr. Miloshnik.
Yes, I've been working with Rachel Moore, former librarian at Wilkinsburg School District. She worked out a grant to remake learning. And I did attach this to those documents that I sent to you. So if you wanted to read over it, you have time to read over it. It's a $70,000 grant. Right now, there's no cost to us to approve to work with her to have Kelly Library be a satellite library for the local children's centers around Wilkinsburg to order books. So we'll have to go through the process of putting it in our system, but it's a way for us to connect with our community again. Those students are going to be coming to our Kelly Library, and there is no cost for us right now on this. There could be cost 3 years down the road, maybe up to $2,000, but if we know after 2 years it's not successful, we don't move on. Rachel, is there anything, I don't know if she's still on.
Yeah.
Rachel, is there anything you want to add to that?
Hey, yeah. I mean, I think the main thing is just that your Kelly Library is going to be the main library for several different satellites that exist in your local Wilkinsburg Child Care Centers. So it's going to be like little mini Kelly libraries in 3 different child care centers.
Thanks, that sounds great.
Yeah.
Wilkinsburg Child Care Center?
Wilkinsburg Child Care Center. So maybe, because I had a lot of questions, she was probably getting tired of my questions. So if you want to take a chance, you want to take that's why I attached it. You might have more questions too. Because I'm like, all right, what's our benefit? This and that. But it is a great way to connect. And we also had her meet with Mrs. Cole, our librarian there.
Yeah, and that's always a good pipeline. Like, how do we get our families that are sending their kids to child care locations in Wilkinsburg?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, Dr. Jeff.
Hey, and also next week, I don't like to add voting items after the planning meeting, but I will try really hard to turn around so we have a resolution regarding hiring Bill Crow, who we talked to last night. Yes. When did we hear from Mr. Crow?
Last night.
Okay, last night, thank you. So you already have a copy of his proposal. I emailed it to you. He's sending me a copy of his agreement, which I will run by Matt so that we have that cleared for him to be hired as the owner's rep. I'm pretty sure that his fee, which sounds like a lot, was based on 3% of a proposed total cost of $9 million. So if the cost of the building goes up to the $12 million that we see on paper, his fee won't change. If the administration building gets done and added in there, his fee won't change. So it's kind of nice to have that locked in at a market rate of 3%. And I hope you all felt the same level of confidence in him that I did. But I'll have a proposal for you next week. We can talk about it and vote on it then.
Yeah, I just had a question with this
Yeah.
administration building thing. Like, are we really going to do more than the roof right now? I mean, is that part, or we have to decide on that?
We have to decide on it.
Yeah,
Right? As of right now,
right.
all the board has approved is doing the roof here.
Yeah.
You know? And so, and it was interesting tonight to hear the architects talk about, well, we could do the windows and this and that for only $200,000 and some dollars, which is way better than, I don't know. We have a lot to talk about, maybe we need a retreat or something on this because the cost of doing Kelly just keeps ballooning. And if we add the admin building there and sell this building or do something about this building, it goes up even more. And I'll tell you what, I mentioned this to Rob, although we have money in the fund balance, I don't think us spending all that money down. It feels really good to have money in the bank. So we're going to have to wrestle with this. Either we bring the cost down and settle for less than everything that's there, or we consider alternative financing sources like we could at least have a presentation about what it would cost to do a bond issue and borrow the money instead. We can at least learn about it and see so that we have some options there. After working so hard to save money and get that fund balance up, it just would kill me to spend all that money.
I agree, and also, we're gonna run into additional costs.
Of
They're gonna
course.
get
That's
in,
right.
they're gonna
That's
need
right.
this and that, and all these things are gonna come up. And so I don't wanna already be at the top end of our budget. But also, you said that he was charging 3% of 9 million
I think.
because it's actually a lot more than that. It's 15. The
I know, but-
architect's today is 15.
I know, but he was he looked everything over and he heard them talking about that it might come down. So he picked the figure 9 million, thinking that money would be shaved off. That's what he told me on the phone today.
If we say end up agreeing to 12 million, a project for 12, he's not gonna do 3% of 12.
That's exactly what I understood. I'll confirm that by next week, and it'll be in writing in his agreement anyway. But that's what I understood. He's a Wilkinsburger. I think he just wants, he's kindness of his heart, but I think he cares a lot that our money gets spent wisely and we get a good job.
I really liked what I heard last night. I was just like, wow, this is crazy that we weren't gonna have somebody helping us like this that knows this business. And there was so much. I was trying to speak last night, but it wasn't working. I don't know. I kept saying, can you guys hear me? And nobody said they could, so I was like, all right, gave up. But I had a few comments. I just wanted to say, I know with Turner, like coming in at the very end of that, when we kept having the one guy just come back, there was always something, one thing after another, and it was like, it just seemed like, I don't want that to happen with Kelly's situation. Now that guy though, he actually worked for he worked for whoever, the architect or the contractor. He was affiliated with.
He'll work for us.
No, not Bill. I'm talking about the guy. You know who I'm talking about?
Yeah. I could mark something or other. No, he didn't work for he was divorced and all that. He worked for the food service people. They have a construction arm.
Yeah.
So he didn't work for anybody related to Turner. But the problem with him was too many decisions came back to us that he should have stopped in their tracks.
That's what I'm saying. Wouldn't Bill sort of be like Mark was in that situation?
But better.
However, I feel like what Bill was saying is you don't want to like have friendships. You don't want the architect and the contractor to be friends and that piece of and that's I totally agree because I feel like we've had a lot of those issues just with the Turner
That's
situation.
exactly what the issue was at Turner.
Yes, it was.
Those were friendships that.
Yes. That's why I didn't know who he was hired by, but I know he was tight with the people that he should have been tight with, and that's why I feel like he kept siding with them, not siding with them, but like always making excuses for why things weren't done. And it was like, wait, hold up, this should just not be happening. You should have been on this. And also, if he was never there when he was supposed to be there, things like that. Whereas I feel like with Bill, that's a little different. I feel like he's definitely an outside party to all of the parties. Like he's not tied to any of them,
Right.
which I like that. And I like that he knows what he's doing and he will keep the ball rolling. So it's not on any of us because we're not the experts. And so I think that we would be foolish not to have somebody like that.
This Bill came along at exactly the right time in our life. I always knew we would have to hire a construction manager like that Mark guy, but I didn't think somebody like Bill would come along this early in the process. But that's really, really, really great. And actually, Vanessa tracked him down.
Thank you, Vanessa.
Through a conversation with Tracy Evans. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And all I had to do was call him. So that worked out pretty well. And I hate to even admit this, but we had, I don't know how many superintendents we had during that period when we were starting to construct the Turner project. But before we hired Mark as the construction manager, we spent at least $20,000 on a different firm. $100,000 on a different firm to be the construction manager, and they didn't do any work, and we still had to pay them. It was shocking. I mean, we got so ripped off.
What is it come up to?
What?
Bill, what does he want?
280 something, I think, to do the whole job.
Yeah, it's, he's capped at 280.
He's capped at that, regardless of how much it goes up. So read his proposal. I think for how smart he is, I think that's money well spent.
Can you send me whatever it was you sent yesterday?
Yeah, are you on that PSD board list yet?
I don't know, I probably am not, but I've only got 3 emails, the rest of my emails are from 20.
Well, I'm gonna send out a note to everybody tonight. It's just gonna say test. There won't be any message, but you'll let me know if you got it. And that would mean you're on that email list called WSD board, okay? All right, in fact, I'll do that shortly.
I just sent the map.
Okay. I had already sent it to him. See, I'm on top of things, Rick. I'm rolling. That's all that caffeine I had late in the afternoon.
We just got it at 7:15.
Oh, I sent him something else then. Okay, never mind. Anything for the good of the order, ladies and gentlemen?
I don't know if there was 2 comments. Oh, yeah, Eric had a.
Oh, Eric. My screen died, Eric, so, oh, no, here it is. Eric has a comment. Go ahead, Eric.
It said Eric left.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, Eric says, just want to clarify, the cost is 15.5, not 12. Oh, yeah, right. I guess that's from Eric.
That was
Oh,
Vanessa.
that's from Vanessa,
Yeah,
Right.
Eric had
Yep.
questions about the satellite.
The libraries. I'd like to comment and suggest a community partnership. So, but Eric's gone, I think. We'll hear about that next week. All right, thanks for the correction, Vanessa. Yeah, I keep saying 12 because 12 was the last shocking number I heard. Now it's 15, which is shockinger than 12. All right? Anything for the good of the order? Okay. Can I have a second on that? Anything?
Second.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night, folks.
Well, this was fun.